Wow, have you guessed who did it yet? Only Murders in the Building is back this week with the third episode of Season 3, and we spent the entirety of this episode having the fingers pointed towards one main person in particular, Kimber. But if we know anything about whodunits, then it's not usually the person that they're pointing towards, and it's the one that you least expect. But is that the case with this? Well, with that, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Only Murders in the Building Season 3 Episode 3, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. This episode opened up with Kimber voicing over the opening section before the title sequence even started rolling. She uttered the line, "Where does a great idea come from? In my experience, it all starts with a single spark." Whilst this was most likely spoken due to the fact that Oliver was converting his play into a musical and it was a fresh idea, I feel like it could have been representative of the idea that Kimber had to kill Ben. With the episode starting with her voicing over the beginning, it was definitely a sign that the entirety of the episode would have us thinking that it could have been her who carried out the crime. There were a couple of other things in this episode that also leaned towards that idea too. For example, there was a handkerchief that was found in Ben's hand when he fell to his death after being pushed through the elevator shaft, and we know that for a fact it wasn't his, as he gave his to the obsessed fan who pretended to be a security guard. So the handkerchief was key to finding out who could have been the most likely suspect. After Charlie requested everybody to bring in their handkerchief, everybody had theirs except for Kimber, and she gave off an excuse that was extremely unbelievable and quite flippant. She stated that she must have just misplaced it or given it away to a good cause. Something which just didn't really make sense at all. So it definitely feels as though she could have been lying. Then there was the fact that Kimber and Ben could have been dating. On the night that Ben died, he apologized to Kimber for making things messy. That paired with the video footage that was retrieved from the night of Ben's first death, where there was somebody in his dressing room where he said, "You're not supposed to be here. Go. You're not going to go, are you? You're just going to sit there acting all sweet. We both know you're bad." Once this was framed as something that could point towards the killer being in the room at that time, I don't think it was. When you listen to how Ben said the line and the specific words that were chosen, it sounded like somebody was there and tapping into a part of his mind that made him know that what he was about to do wasn't good. Temptation. Hence where Kimber being involved in this video footage could become true. Maybe they were dating each other, and this happened after they decided to end things. So I don't think that Kimber was responsible for his death. I think they were just deeply engrossed in some kind of unofficial relationship that ended in a messy way. The final thing that we had from Kimber in this episode was the line, "It's a competitive business, you may need to snuff them out." This was voiced over when she got on stage and was singing alongside Loretta as part of the presentation of Oliver's musical to Cliff and his mother. The look that she had on her face was a particularly evil-looking one, and she was implying that she'd essentially go to all ends in order to ensure that she was front and center and looked the best on stage. But again, I think that's just the competitive nature of the type of person that she is and the business that she's in. So despite the entire episode leading us down the path of Kimber, personally, I think that's too obvious for it to be the case. Loretta had a heavy feature in this week's episode, as after she turned up late, we saw that she was offered a role for a TV show in LA, something which meant that she wouldn't be able to participate in the musical. However, after performing the song to Cliff and his mother, she decided to stay and do the musical, even though Oliver wasn't going to be enforcing the contract, which would have meant that she had to stay. There was a bit of a "well they, won't they" between Oliver and Loretta in this episode. And right at the end, we saw that they shared a kiss between one another after Oliver's musical got picked up by Cliff, and Loretta announced that she was going to stay. So I do wonder what that means for the dynamic of the cast moving forward, as I imagine it will definitely shake things up on its head. One particular part of the show that I was sleeping on, but only now am I thinking about how it could hold some importance, is the story that Topper told Mabel about when he was out in Botswana, and he was filming the baby elephant that was sinking in the mud and was fighting to stay alive. He initially mentioned how he got down and spent time trying to save it, but then it was revealed to us that he lied about that, and he actually sat perched in the tree and continued to film it until its mother came and saved it. However, he did say that even if the mother didn't come and save it, he would have continued to film it until it did finally succumb to the sinking mud. This to me was a story that I feel was very reflective in his role. He was documenting Ben's life, and Ben was the elephant in reality. Tolbert was filming Ben's struggles and watching him lose track of himself in Spiral, and he chose to do nothing. And what it also showed was that he was willing to watch the animal die in front of him and do nothing. So if we link that back to the main story, could that be Ben? Could he have a part in Ben's death? Maybe, but I guess that's something we'll see as time goes on. There was a line that was spoken in episode 1 of the show where he mentioned how he was going to introduce himself and then never speak again, as he was merely an observer. So as an observer who nobody would notice, he could quite easily be forgotten if not in a room, and then slip out and cause the crime. It's just an option for now. Ben's brother had a small appearance in this episode too, but there was something suspicious about the way that he was acting. He had already signed Loretta on his books and was working on getting her a new job in LA. It does make me think, what if he wanted to relocate with her because he had something to do with Ben's death? Loretta turned down the opportunity, so she clearly wasn't in a fuss or a rush to get away from the area of where the murder took place. So I would say that he's definitely high up on the suspect list. We don't truly know what his relationship was like with his brother. Could there have been a motive to wipe him out of the picture? Maybe. Overall review. I thought this episode was okay. I don't think it was as strong as the first two, but I understand why. The first 2 episodes really kick-started the case and the investigation and raised suspicions around everybody, whilst also balancing the comedic elements quite well. This episode felt a little bit more compartmentalized, and most of the characters were off doing their own thing. Mabel with Tolbert, Oliver working on his musical, and Charles working on investigating. I'm hoping next week we get the 3 of them together, because the sparks that fly when they're on screen together is like nothing else and provides a real uniqueness to the show. Meryl Streep is so good in her role of Loretta, and whenever she's on screen she absolutely smashes it. Did anybody else really like the song that she was singing? Because I thought it was a really good song for a musical, so that was a nice additional extra from the show this week. It feels like Mabel and Tolbert could potentially hit it off this season. There was an awkward sense of attraction that felt like it was prisoned, and I don't know if I'm all about that. I don't think it's needed in the show, to be honest, but maybe it could be Mabel utilizing a technique in order to find out more information, and if that's the case, then I'm fine with that, because that's actually pretty smart. I am intrigued to see what's going to unfold in the next episode of the show. It's titled The Weight Room. When I think of a weight room, I think of the punishment and torture that one can get put through, but I don't think it's going to be anything like that, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens when the next episode airs. This season is definitely shaping up to be a good one, as right now, I can't put my finger on who it could be, or why one would do it. I personally don't think that it's Kimber or Loretta, especially after having quite a lot of time with them. I think it's going to be somebody else, but I guess we've just got to wait and see what other clues come our way. Right now, I'm leaning towards Ben's brother. Who do you think did it? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching until the end of the video. I'll be covering this show every Tuesday for the rest of the season, so if you enjoyed it, be sure to come back. Until next time, see ya.